So today I wanted to take a little contemplative journey in exploring idealism. And what is idealism? And how can we stop getting caught up in the obscurity of all these positive intentions and good ideas? You know, that's the shadow nature of idealism in the gene keys. It's obscurity. It's where these beautiful ideals get lost in the communication of them, lost in the manifestation, because they're not grounded or anchored in a solid framework. And so the concept, the contemplation for me, as I've been going through this, contemplating idealism, begins with its highest nature. And if you look at the frequency band of idealism, at its fully potentiated, highest frequency range, is what we like to think of as light. And if you think of light, right now, I've had to do this whole light setup, so I can have a green screen behind me so I can put this beautiful image on. And so that I can have this light shining off my face. And you see these little shadows here, light here. And the way that we arrange light, the way that we structure light, creates the illusion of reality, right? So I've had to create this illusion of light to be able to create an experience in my sharing of these contemplations. So when you think of light, we straight away think, okay, it makes something so that we can see it. But what we often forget is that light carries information. That information can be transmitted, is transmitted through light. Optical fibers is transmitting information. The sun is firing these particles and light, and that light is traveling through, is carrying information. And then for you to be able to see your reality, light must bounce off the surface. And when the light bounces off the surface, it picks up information. And then it carries that information to your eyeballs, which are then absorbed into your brain, and then your imagination weaves it together to create an image. And so that's how our ideals are communicated through light. And if you think of this, an ideal, what is an ideal? For me, it comes down to, well, it's an idea. It's an idea of the future that I would like to be in the now. That's my ideals. That's how I like to think of it. So where do I get my ideals from? How do I get ideas about the future of how I would like things to be? And I feel that they come from these inspirations, these epiphanies, these aha moments when we experience darkness. And in the darkness, the contrast helps us reach out and connect to the light. And if you've ever seen, comic books and strips, what do they draw above their head when they have a good idea? They draw a light globe, right? It's like, I've got a light globe moment, a light bulb moment. And it's amazing you can see, even in our everyday mainstream culture, that light is synonymous with ideas and ideals. But the challenge is that we then take these ideas, these ideals of how we would like life to be, but then we get lost in the fear that they might not manifest. We start worrying that they might not become a reality. Because when we look around, we see these tricks of light making us, think there's monsters all around us. And so then what happens is we grab hold tight to that light. We don't want to let it go. We don't want to let our ideals go. We want to insist that they manifest. I want it in front of me. I want to see it. And then what happens is we either hold it in, too scared to share our ideas with the world, our ideals and insights and light with the world. So we keep it in. But then it starts to get twisted inside. It starts to tell a story inside us. We start to create this inner fantasy world where our ideals are kept safe from being interfered with from outside. But when you isolate, ideals like that, and you protect them too much and you keep them too far inside without having something to bounce off, they become obscure. They stop making sense with the real world. And this is where you see cults begin to form. This is where you see religion, where beautiful insights have come through every religion. Every religious book was originally written, inspired by light itself that would come through the person that was creating these ideals. And they would propose forwards to their people a set of ideals to live by, to aim, to strive towards. But then what happens in every single religion, in every single belief system, is that we get so caught up in the ideals of the future, whether we hold on tight to them, that they begin to get corrupted. They become obscure. We become so attached to the story of how we're trying to share that pure light that the light itself becomes lost in it. And it becomes abstract. And it no longer makes real sense in the everyday world. And so this is that key where, we either, get caught in obscurity, where we hold on to our ideals and our light and we don't want to share them. Or we do the opposite. We feel like we have to make sure everyone understands our ideals. We project them. We vomit them onto our people all around us. We tell people, it should be like this. It should be like that. That's what the world should be like. And I've been a big culprit of that. And as I'm sure many of you have experienced in your own ways. It's that part where you have something so precious, this insight into the beauty that the world could be. And we get so caught up in it that we're not worried that naturally life won't come about. So we try to force it onto others. We try to scream it out at the world. Say, wake up. Can't you see the light? Can't you see the potential, the beauty that is available to us? Please wake up. And so then we project it out. But to the average person out there in the world, it seems like an obscure concept. How can you sit there and tell me that there is enough peace, enough resources in the world that we could create peace and harmony within humanity? The idea of peace, even existing on planet Earth, for a large percentage of the population, is a very unrealistic ideal, which is essentially saying it's not grounded in their current reality, so they can't perceive the light you're trying to share with them. And so the gift to idealism, the real key to being able to take these beautiful ideas and this light that is streaming through each of us and share it with the world in a way that can be seeded and over time cultivated and grown into a beautiful garden of potential. The key is in a healthy framework. It's about creating a healthy, magical structure that can contain this. Just as if you have a seed, no matter how great the oak tree, you plant that seed and give it a little structure just to help it along in the early days. It needs to grow in the soil that's available. It needs to work its way through the beginnings, the challenge in the beginning to get started. And it needs to be supported. It needs to be nurtured. So that's where it's important in our lives that when we have these great ideals, these great inspirations that we want to share with the world, that we don't try to force it on them. And we also don't keep it hidden. But instead look at our everyday life and think, where can I begin to seed this? Gently, with love and compassion, without expectation. Where can I seed this in my own world? How can I create a basic structure in my day-to-day life that allows this ideal to begin to manifest itself? And it always begins with self. It's so very easy to sit there and demand everyone else lives by these beautiful ideals. But if you want peace on earth, then you must first begin with the diplomacy. If you want to get your ideals in this world, then you first have to begin to live those ideals in your everyday life. And then as you begin to anchor that seed of these greater ideals in your everyday life, taking into account the reality that you're in, that you can't change everyone around you, all you can do is take responsibility for yourself. Then as you begin to create a healthy framework in your own world that is allowing this magic to grow, it will begin to spread. Others will begin to see that light that you are cultivating, that beautiful ideal that you are cultivating in your being, that you are radiating without pressuring and without hiding, but simply allowing to glow through you. And then you will be able to see if you can allow that light to shine without judgment in those places that, it needs it, in those places of darkness and challenging times where you'd rather not be. If you can get your core stability anchored, if you can find your grounding in your everyday world and hold that ideal in your being, then that light will radiate out and it will shine on the pathway for others to be able to follow their way, to find their way to the ideal. Because their way will be very different to your way, even though the destination is the same. So that's just a little contemplation on light and the importance of having a very simple structure and a certain level of healthy realism in making sure that when we plant that seed, we're planting it in a healthy way that has potential to grow and shine its light into the collective without causing, obscurity and separation and limitation in the way we move forwards. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in a few days with the next contemplation.